Hi there, I'm Professor Blackmore, and I want to welcome you back to my channel and to my series entitled The Hush Money Agreement That Just Won't Hush, wherein I will endeavor to break down all of the rigamarole surrounding the Donald Trump, Stormy Daniels, side chick, hush money criminal case in New York brought by Manhattan District Attorney, Brother Alvin Bragg.
Did you two go out for dinner that night?
No.
You had dinner in the room?
Yes.
What happened next?
I asked him if I could use his restroom, and he said yes. You know, it's through through the bedroom, you'll see it. So I excused myself and I went to the restroom. You know, I was in there for a little bit and came out, and he was sitting, on the edge of the bed when I walked out. Perched.
In addition to trying to straighten out all of this mess, I am going to show you some things about this case that you didn't know, that would kind of leave you asking yourself, how is Donald Trump accused of doing anything when it seems everything that was done by everybody other than Donald Trump?
One thing I'd never understood is, there's a signature line on the contract for DD, which is Donald Trump's pseudonym. Why didn't he sign?
Okay, so the bottom line is you have a contract between ECLLC and Stormy Daniels. So at the time when this was all going on, there may have been a situation where Michael could have brought it to him to sign. Michael chose to just allow ECLLC to be the party. That's why we have the and/or. And by the way, I know you've made up your own laws in this case. Wait, let me just get to this. And/or, by the way, has the same meaning in New York as it does in Wyoming, as it does in California. Okay, because you tried to school me on the California law, I actually researched, and guess what? The United States Supreme Court and cases in California all agree that and/or is either or.
There's another provision in the contract, I believe it's section 8.6, which says the contract is not valid unless everybody signs. Doesn't that trump the and/or?
It's not valid unless the parties sign. The parties to the contract are ECLLC and Stormy Daniels.
And so, let's jump right in. Now, without getting into the weeds of all of the different laws being used to convict Brother Trump, Brother Alvin Bragg will endeavor to prove that Brother Trump, number one, intended to conspire with Brother Michael Cohen and editors of the National Enquirer to bury a story about an alleged one-night stand in 2006 with Sister Stormy Daniels by paying her $130,000, which was an allegedly illegally high campaign expenditure. Number two, that Brother Trump intended to violate state law when he disguised his repayment to Brother Cohen in the form of a series of monthly checks as legal fees, which legally were really actually made well after the election when Brother Trump was already in the White House. And number three, that Brother Trump intended to conspire to falsify the records of the National Enquirer through a plan to catch and kill stories that could hurt his 2016 campaign. And let me be clear, Brother Alvin Bragg does not have to prove that Brother Trump actually did any of this. He only merely needs to prove that Brother Trump intended to do these three things. And proof of an intent to do any of these three things would be sufficient to satisfy the requirement of committing a violation of New York Law 17-152, which states, quote, any two or more persons who conspire to promote or prevent the election of any person to a public office by unlawful means, and which conspiracy is acted upon by one or more of the parties thereto, shall be guilty of a misdemeanor, end quote. Nevertheless, the charge becomes a felony, punishable by up to 4 years in prison if the records were falsified with the intent to commit or hide some other underlying crime, which are the three aforementioned crimes that I just previously described. So, let's start with number one, that Brother Trump, quote, intended to conspire with Brother Michael Cohen and editors of the National Enquirer to bury a story about an alleged 2006 one-night stand with Sister Stormy Daniels by paying her $130,000, which was an illegally high campaign expenditure. End quote.
The Enquirer paid a Trump doorman $30,000 for a tale about the former president fathering an out-of-wedlock child, which turned out to be totally false. The Enquirer paid $150,000 to Karen McDougal, former Playboy playmate, to stay quiet about an alleged 10-month affair, which Trump denies, ostensibly for ghost-ridden fitness columns. Trump opposed the payment, saying such things always come out, but Pecker insisted. Yet the publisher said he balked at paying off Stormy Daniels because he didn't want the tabloid involved with a porn star. Another factor, perhaps, Pecker hadn't been reimbursed for the payment to Karen McDougal, so Michael Cohen had to give Stormy the $130,000. None of this is illegal, but it sets the stage for the alleged falsification of expense records to reimburse Cohen. Now, that's usually a misdemeanor, except Alvin Bragg wants to tie it to a larger conspiracy, and Trump hasn't actually been charged with conspiracy.
Now, at this point, if this is all not as clear as mud, and what I love more than I can say is how this booty call case has a star witness whose name is Pecker. But clearly the state of New York's so-called star witness, Brother Pecker, has no way of being able to testify to whether Brother Trump intended to do anything regarding this transaction because all of his communications were with Brother Michael Cohen. And so the best way to untangle this mess is to go back to the very beginning. Now, in one of my day jobs, I teach law students how to draft contracts. And I have been using this case in my class ever since Stormy Daniels came on the scene with her sleazy lawyer, Brother Avenatti, back in 2018 when she wanted to breach the agreement so that she could monetize her efforts to spill the tea on Brother Trump, allegedly. And as a result, over time, I have invented what I call a side piece settlement agreement. And if you need one, you can find it on my website at ProfessorBlackmore.com. And if you've taken my side piece settlement agreements class, then you would learn that I strongly believe that you don't want to wait until you need a side chick settlement agreement to find out what it is. And so, while many may call it a hush money agreement or an NDA or non-disclosure agreement, I call it a side piece or side chick settlement agreement. Because to do it the right way, you can't spill all of the tea, if you know what I mean, in the main agreement, because then the agreement itself will defeat the purpose for which it was created, which is to keep it all on the down low, if you know what I mean. And so, to do it right, you need a side agreement, or what some may call a side letter agreement, which is where you bury all of the bones about the side chick. And so, to be able to be successful in prosecuting Brother Trump, Brother Bragg will have to draw a straight line from things Brother Trump actually did or said to bring about the end result of what was accomplished by the transaction in an effort to prove beyond a reasonable doubt what his intention was for carrying out the steps of each part of the transaction in this tangled up web of deception that had to be carried out to bring about the conclusion of this entire mess. And quote, that Brother Trump intended to conspire with Brother Michael Cohen and editors of the National Enquirer to bury a story about an alleged 2006 one-night stand with Sister Stormy Daniels by paying her $130,000, which was an illegally high campaign expenditure. End quote. And so, let's refresh our memory about this alleged 2006 booty call. I mean, one night stand.
Did you two go out for dinner that night?
No.
You had dinner in the room?
Yes.
What happened next?
I asked him if I could use his restroom, and he said yes. It's through through the bedroom, you'll see it. So I excused myself and I went to the restroom. I was in there for a little bit and came out, and he was sitting, on the edge of the bed when I walked out, perched.
And you had sex with him?
Yes.
Did you want to have sex with him?
No.
Now remember again, the only reason that Brother Michael Cohen had to devise a scheme to pay Sister Stormy is because Brother Pecker over there at the National Enquirer would not pay her because he was never reimbursed for paying Sister McDougal, and because Brother Pecker stated that the National Enquirer did not want to be involved in catching and killing a story involving a porn star. And so, after I show you how this mess was set up, I want you to ask yourself if you think Brother Trump was even smart enough to know how to put this mess together, let alone knowing the purpose of the end result of what he was doing it for, because as you will see, you can't draw a straight line between nothing in this transaction and Brother Trump. And it is doubtful that he could have had the intent to do it, because I wouldn't have even been able to think of doing any of this myself after over 20 years in the practice of law. But now that I know how to do it, let me just say, I am in the business of drafting side chick settlement agreements and their appurtenant transactions. But one thing I find that people are surprised to find out is that Brother Trump never signed the hush money agreement, and that the only two people who ever signed the agreement were Sister Stormy and Brother Michael Cohen. Although Brother Cohen now wants to make it seem like Brother Trump was read into all of this mess just because he now wants to see him in prison, I think anybody looking at this knows that Brother Trump does not know what the hell was going on here, and as such, could not have been able to be involved in a conspiracy to do it. And so, I'm going to show you the preamble of this side chick settlement agreement, which states that the agreement is made, quote, by and between EC, LLC, and or David Dennison, DD, on the one part, and Peggy Peterson, PP, on the other part. EC, LLC, DD, and PP are pseudonyms whose true identity will be acknowledged in a side letter agreement attached here too as Exhibit A, end quote. In other words, ladies and gentlemen of this courthouse jury, Peggy Peterson, PP, is Sister Stormy, and David Dennison, DD, is Brother Trump. Now, for those of you who are curious about what is in the side letter agreement, it states, quote, it is understood and agreed that the true names and identity of the person referred to as Peggy Peterson in the settlement agreement is Stephanie Gregory Clifford, aka Stormy Daniels, and it is understood and agreed that the true name and identity of the person referred to as David Dennison in the settlement agreement is, just let's say here that this says Donald Trump, end quote. But the side letter is also not signed by Brother Trump. And in my mind, it just goes to possibly establish that Brother Trump didn't have the requisite intent to do anything because he didn't know about it. And at the very least, you can't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he did, unless he messes this mess up by getting on the stand and testifying. And so, these are the parties to the transaction: EC, LLC, DD, and PP. And what Brother Michael Cohen did was he set up a limited liability company, and he, Brother Michael Cohen, set up the hush money agreement such that it was technically entered into between Sister Stormy and the limited liability company, which was EC, LLC. And the true name of EC, LLC was Essential Consultants, LLC, which is and was a company incorporated by Brother Michael Cohen in the state of Delaware. Now, I want you to tell me if you think Brother Trump had the intent to do any of this. Now, mind you, Brother Michael Cohen could have just gone to Brother Trump and told him about all of this and explained to him what he was trying to have Brother Pecker do, and that Brother Pecker did not want to do it. But because he wanted to be known as the fixer, he devised this wise scheme on his own. And if you go back through Brother Pecker's testimony, you will see that he testifies over and over again about meetings he had with Brother Cohen. And if the truth would really be told, for every question that you ask about this mess, the answer is Brother Michael Cohen. And anybody who knows the truth knows that the idea of Brother Cohen's intent to enter into this hush money agreement with Sister Stormy goes back years and years before Brother Trump had any idea about running for president of the United States.
Adult film actress Stormy Daniels says fear kept her from talking about an alleged affair with President Trump. She told her complete story last night on 60 Minutes. It's already under attack by the lawyer for Michael Cohen, the president's personal attorney.
Stormy Daniels says she signed a non-disclosure agreement because she was worried about her and her family's safety. She claims that Michael Cohen threatened her with financial ruin to keep quiet.
The interview presents possible legal challenges for Cohen and Mr. Trump. Major Garrett is at the White House, which has said nothing about the 60 Minutes story. Major, good morning.
Good morning. Daniels discussed in some detail this alleged affair with President Trump. It's one she had previously denied, by the way. She also made mention of an alleged threat against her and her daughter. Now, on the eve of this 60 Minutes broadcast that went into all of this, the president had dinner with his lawyer, Michael Cohen. The two of them, of course, are at the center of this ongoing legal and political drama.
I was in a parking lot going to a fitness class with my infant daughter, and a guy walked up on me and said to me, "Leave Trump alone, forget the story." And then he leaned around and looked at my daughter and said, "It's a beautiful little girl. It'd be a shame if something happened to her mom." And then he was gone.
In an interview with 60 Minutes, Stormy Daniels says she was first threatened to stay silent in 2011.
You took it as a direct threat.
Absolutely. I was rattled. I remember going into the workout class and my hands were shaking so much I was afraid I was going to drop her.
Did you go to the police?
No,
Why?
because I was scared.
Daniels says she doesn't know who threatened her. Her lawyer, Michael Avenatti, says a new lawsuit filed by Cohen is meant to intimidate his client.
There's no question. You threaten someone with a $20 million lawsuit, it's a thuggish tactic. It's no different than what happened in the parking lot in Las Vegas.
Michael Cohen has denied ever threatening Daniels. His lawyer fired back overnight at Avenatti with a cease and desist letter calling allegations she was threatened baseless. Mr. Cohen had absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with any such person or incident and does not even believe that any such person exists.
Was it hush money to stay silent?
Yes. The story was coming out again. I was concerned for my family and their safety.
After signing a non-disclosure agreement, Daniels said she lied in statements where she denied having an affair with Mr. Trump.
If it was untruthful, why did you sign it?
Because they made it sound like I had no choice.
I mean, no one was putting a gun to your head.
Not physical violence, no.
You thought that there would be some sort of legal repercussion if you didn't sign it.
Correct. As a matter of fact, the exact sentence used was, "They can make your life hell in many different ways."
They being?
I'm not exactly sure who they were. I believe it to be Michael Cohen.
No comment from the White House about all this. An attorney for Mr. Trump referred 60 Minutes to a January signed statement of denial from Daniels, which read in part, "My involvement with Donald Trump was limited to a few public appearances and nothing more." Nora?
All right, Major, thank you.
And so, if Brother Cohen was trying to get Sister Stormy to enter into this hush money transaction since at least 2011, then what was the reason back then? How could it have possibly been about the 2016 election way back in 2011 when Brother Trump didn't even know he was going to run until he came down those glorious stairs on that escalator with Sister Melania? But I guess that ain't none of my business neither. Now, the recitals of the agreement set forth in general the crux of the matter at issue, which was that, quote, prior to entering into this agreement, PP Sister Stormy, came into possession of certain confidential information pertaining to DD, Brother Trump, which includes but is not limited to information, certain still images and or text messages which were authored by or relate to Brother Trump. Brother Trump claims that he had been damaged by Sister Stormy's alleged threatened selling, transferring, licensing, publicly disseminating, and or exploiting the images and or property and or other confidential information relating to Brother Trump. End quote. Now, these are the terms of the settlement. Quote, EC LLC shall pay to Sister Stormy $130,000 wired into Sister Stormy's attorney's attorney-client trust account. End quote. Now, keep in mind that Sister Stormy's attorney at this time was not Brother Avenatti. Again, Brother Avenatti only came into the picture later when Sister Stormy realized after she had already taken the money of which her prior attorney had already probably taken at that time, probably at least 30%. Well, I'm sure Brother Avenatti convinced her that she could make more money if she told the story, because now Brother Trump did what nobody thought he would have been able to do, which is to win the 2016 presidential election, and now the value of the information she had a higher value. And as you can see here, the agreement was never signed by the person purported to be DD, i.e. Donald Trump, and Brother Trump's signature does not appear anywhere on these documents. On the contrary, Brother Michael Cohen signs the agreement on behalf of EC LLC, i.e. Essential Consultants LLC, which is the actual party to the agreement. And if you want to know what Brother Michael Cohen's intent behind all of this mess that he put together was, which is now actually my favorite and preferred way of constructing side chick hush money agreements, then here is his attorney at the time who can tell us what his intent was.
One thing I've never understood is, there's a signature line on the contract for DD, which is Donald Trump's pseudonym. Why didn't he sign?
Okay, so the bottom line is you have a contract between ECLLC and Stormy Daniels. So at the time when this was all going on, he could, there may have been a situation where Michael could have brought it to him to sign. Michael chose to just allow ECLLC to be the party. That's why we have the and/or. And by the way, I know you've made up your own laws in this case. Wait, let me just get to this. And/or, by the way, has the same meaning in New York as it does in Wyoming, as it does in California. Okay, because you tried to school me on the California law, I actually researched, and guess what? The United States Supreme Court and cases in California all agree that and/or is either or.
There's another provision in the contract, I believe it's section 8.6, which says the contract is not valid unless everybody signs. Doesn't that trump the ad-or?
It's not valid unless the parties sign. The parties to the contract are ECLLC and Stormy Daniels. And
so why is there a line that says DD for Donald Trump?
Because it
for
gave,
no reason?
It gave the option for Donald Trump to be a party to the contract. Instead, he's not a party. He's a third-party beneficiary.
But couldn't he have, in terms of that third-party beneficiary, couldn't there have just been a contract between Stormy Daniels and the Limited Liability Corporation that benefited Mr. Trump?
And that's exactly what this is.
So why have a third line there at all?
Because it gave the option.
Why did they need that option?
Because Michael wanted to have the option. That's why he purposely did it. This was a carefully drafted contract with a rock-solid arbitration
But why did he
clause.
want to have that option? I just don't, from a legal standpoint, I don't understand why.
Because when you're in the middle of all this, you want to have the option. He wanted to give himself the option. He chose not to exercise the option.
Trump wanted to give himself the option?
Michael Cohen wanted to give himself the option as the agent of EC.
And what do you make of this letter that Michael Cohen sent saying this was a dispute between President Trump and Stormy Daniels?
It's a February letter, and guess what? This is see, he doesn't like to include the timelines. It's after.
He did, he pointed out.
Yeah, but it's after he sued Donald Trump. So now he brought Donald Trump into the action. That's not true. In fact, that's the whole point. In fact, that's the whole point behind all this.
Okay.
I mean, you have to ask yourself, what is the end game here?
So
it's not about money, right?
Let me ask you a question about one of the broader points in this case, which is Michael Cohen's claim that he paid out of his own money, out of his home equity line, the money in this case. Have you ever heard of a lawyer paying a judgment or a settlement on behalf of a client out of his own money?
No, but this is not a normal attorney-client relationship. This is much more than an attorney-client relationship. So first of all, there's nothing illegal about it.
I understand. I never said there's anything illegal
about it. If you understand the relationship here, you would understand that it would be completely reasonable for Michael Cohen to pay that.
Let me be reasonable. Donald Trump is, according to him, a billionaire. Michael Cohen has to go into a home equity line to pay $130,000. That sounds reasonable to you?
Under the circumstances, under the set of circumstances that they're involved in, it's completely reasonable.
And
I still haven't gotten an answer to the lie detector
You're saying it had
that
nothing.
He made such a big deal
You're saying it had absolutely nothing to do with the campaign. That it was just a coincidence that this was in 11 days.
This is when the
presidential
settlement
election?
took place. The law is pretty clear on this. Okay, if the bottom line is if it's for reputation, business, family, to protect those things.
Right.
Then,
but that could have been done in
2007,
2008, 2009, 2010. I mean, it could have been done in all those
but
years.
This is when illegal blackmail took place.
What's
this is legal extortion. It's legal extortion when somebody comes to a CEO or a famous person, they try to extract money from them. This is when it all takes place. So we call it hush money here, right?
So you're saying Stormy Daniels was trying to extort money from Michael Cohen?
Of course, that's what you do from a 12-year, when you had sex.
So who had
She's claiming
contact?
She had sex 12 years ago.
Who had contact with Michael Cohen from Stormy Daniels' camp that they're trying to extort money?
But it happens every day in America.
No, I'm asking in this specific case. Right. You're saying Stormy Daniels or her team were trying to extort money from Donald Trump.
I believe it's a legal form. It's a legal form of extortion when you use a lawyer to try to extract it. And she talked about it yesterday
but who was trying
on TV. And by the way, she said the contract was solid, rock solid.
But who was what you're saying? Keith Davidson contacted Michael Cohen to extort money.
She admitted it. I mean, it's a legal form of extortion.
So she was saying that people were coming to her with money.
And then she got the best deal that she could possibly get from Michael Cohen.
Right.
So, but it's a form of extracting as much money as possible.
Okay.
That's what it is.
Right.
Can he answer the question?
Yes, I'm going to answer the question.
Please answer
I'm
the
going to
question.
answer the question. In 2011, In Touch magazine asked my client to sit for a lie detector test with a licensed polygraph examiner in the state of Nevada who does this every day. She went to the office, she sat down, the polygraph examination was administered, and she passed. So look, to the extent that you have a problem with the polygraph examiner, file a complaint with the state of Nevada.
I don't care about your polygraph. I'm not filing
examination.
You're the one who paid $25,000. You're the one who paid $25,000 for a ridiculous polygraph test that makes no sense.
David Schwartz, Michael Avenatti, Jeff Dubin.
Now, Sister Stormy, if you're so scared back in 2011 and you're not trying to extort money out of Brother Trump, even way back then why are you doing an interview, taking a lie detector test with In Touch magazine? Oh, but I guess that ain't none of my business, y'all. But if you don't see this attorney right here, Brother Cohen's former attorney, Brother Schwartz, testifying in Brother Trump's current criminal trial, then that ought to tell you everything you need to know about that judge the Democrat Party handpicked to preside over this mess. Oh, but let me stay focused, y'all, because after he signs the side piece, side chick settlement agreement, which Brother Trump never signed, then on his own volition, Brother Michael Cohen takes out a home equity line of credit in the amount of $130,000, and he, not Brother Trump, directly makes the wire transfer payment to Stormy Daniels' attorney's trust account. In other words, when Brother Cohen decides to raise the funds for the $130,000 payment, it doesn't go to Brother Trump's banker, and clearly he doesn't simply just go to Brother Trump and have him raise the funds. He goes to his own banker, Gary Farrow, at Republic Bank, who assists him in taking out a home equity line of credit. And we will hear from Brother Gary this week during his testimony, which began last Friday. And so, as you can see, this payment had nothing whatsoever to do with the National Enquirer. So let's see if we can match the facts with the elements of the crime by going back to our original crime, which is, again, quote, that Brother Trump intended to conspire with Brother Michael Cohen and editors of the National Enquirer to bury a story about an alleged 2006 one-night stand with Sister Stormy Daniels by paying her $130,000, which was an illegally high campaign expenditure, end quote. Now, we have established that Brother Pecker wanted to have no part of the transaction involving Stormy Daniels. So, you might be able to prove that Brother Cohen intended to do it, but it is not clear that Brother Trump intended to conspire with Brother Michael Cohen and the National Enquirer, because the minute that Brother Cohen proposed it to Brother Pecker, he said hell no. So, in my opinion, it is hard to tie Brother Trump or the $130,000 payment to that particular conspiracy, because Brother Pecker said hell no from the start, and nobody knows if the two of them even got to a discussion on the issue of how much Sister Stormy would have been paid. Notwithstanding, Brother Alvin Bragg has charged Brother Trump with making 34 separate payments to Brother Michael Cohen in the amount of $35,000 each, which was customary for him to make over the years to reimburse his attorney for his legal services, which would include any fees and expenses that Brother Michael Cohen advanced in conjunction with his legal services. And when you multiply 34 times $35,000, it does not come to $130,000. And by my calculations, it comes to $1,190,000. And so, ladies and gentlemen of this internet courthouse jury, if the digits don't fit, then you must have quit. And even if it did fit, it can't be connected to the National Enquirer alleged conspiracy, because the National Enquirer was not interested, and it is not clear that Brother Trump himself intended to conspire, because no one can prove that Brother Trump intended to conspire unless he is foolish enough to take the stand and testify. And when it was all said and done, Sister Stormy was ultimately ordered to pay Brother Trump.
A California judge just ordered porn star and director Stormy Daniels to pay nearly $300,000 in legal fees to the lawyers representing President Trump. Daniels' lawyer, Michael Avenatti, argued today that the amount awarded was less than half what Trump's team asked for. Trump's attorney called the ruling today a total victory for the president.
But, ladies and gentlemen of this internet courthouse jury, what do you think? I mean, do you think Brother D.A. Alvin Bragg will be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Brother Trump intended to do anything having to do with Brother Cohen's trickery in his own unilateral efforts to elevate his fixer resume by devising this side chick hush money transaction to cover up a booty call? I mean, really, should anybody spend time in jail over a booty call? Please let me know what you think by leaving your comments in the comments section below. And I hope you'll also give me a big thumbs up. And I hope you'll also consider donating to this video and my entire channel ministry by donating to the ProfessorBlackmore.com Cash App. And I hope you'll also subscribe to my YouTube channel and set your notifications so you'll be able to be notified whenever I come back with more hot tea from the church house, the courthouse, the White House, and everywhere else, honey child. And please also follow me on TikTok and Instagram.